Tonight, a stolen car in crash chaos in Melbourne's northern suburbs. 4 teenagers taken to hospital. The latest live. A dad run down in front of his 9-year-old as he protected his home. Novak Djokovic facing a fight to return to Melbourne. A warning after a Picasso protest targeting a priceless masterpiece. Done deals, a historic trade for the Roos, and a premiership demon becomes a docker. And later, the new scams catching more and more Victorians.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. 4 school-aged teens are under police guard in hospital after a suspected stolen car caused chaos in Thomastown. Rochelle Brown is at the scene this evening, and Rochelle, they were involved in a crash and they're accused of attacking a Good Samaritan.
Mitch, 4 boys aged between 14 and 16 were allegedly speeding down the road in a stolen black SUV when it collided with a truck. Now, that truck rolled and slammed straight into the barrier here, narrowly missing the worker who was walking nearby. The truck driver managed to climb out of the window just as the stolen car caught on fire. One boy bolted on foot as another turned his attention to a Good Samaritan trying to help, knocking him out cold and then attempting to steal his car to get away.
He pulled over just to try and see if everyone was okay because the car was so battered, and then he's obviously got smacked in the face.
All 6 people involved were taken to hospital. 4 remain under armed guard tonight. Mitch?
Rochelle Brown at Thomastown, thank you. A father has been hit by a 4-wheel drive in front of his 9-year-old daughter as he fought to protect his home. An intruder was trying to escape when he drove straight at him.
A burglar rushing to make a bad situation even worse. Caught in the act by a Frankston father. The thief then steered his car towards the dad and struck him. Brant Lenord found himself in danger of being run over as the Land Cruiser mounted a garden bed.
It was quite scary, but the look on his face was he was not going to stop. He was anything to get away.
After arriving home with his 9-year-old daughter yesterday morning, he found the stranger and the Land Cruiser parked in their driveway. The 42-year-old had attempted to block the vehicle with his car.
My first thoughts was my daughter in my car. Just please don't hit the car.
His cool-headed daughter called police as she watched her father in serious danger of being run over and jammed into a fence. They attempted a pursuit but couldn't keep up. Others were put in danger as the Land Cruiser sped away. The crook is believed to be Caucasian, about 175 centimetres tall with a solid build.
It's disgusting, the behaviour by this offender. Initially to commit the burglary on someone's house and then to commit these acts in front of a 9-year-old girl. It's disgraceful.
The burglar dumped an e-mountain bike worth $10,000 to make a quick getaway. His victims left traumatised.
Scared to know that these people can come back or someone can come back.
Cameron Bowe, 7 News.
A teenage girl has been charged with dangerous driving after a cyclist was hit and killed in the Macedon Ranges yesterday morning. The 75-year-old Gisborne man was struck by a car while riding at Wood End. He was taken to hospital in a critical condition but later died. The 19-year-old was granted bail and will appear in court on Friday. Novak Djokovic is facing a fight to return to Melbourne for the 2023 Australian Open. Tournament officials desperately want him to play, but the vaccine-hesitant star needs the immigration minister to step in before he can take to the court.
Novak Djokovic!
Novak Djokovic just won his 90th career title.
I dare to dream, actually.
But winning his way back into Australia is looming as a much tougher task. His hopes rest with Immigration Minister Andrew Giles, who needs to waive Djokovic's 3-year visa ban if he's to play in January's Oz Open.
Novak Djokovic has been detained in Australia.
Djokovic was booted out of the country on the eve of the tournament because of his vaccine status. That hasn't changed, but Australia's rules have. John Delahunty's wife, Rosemary, died of cancer during the pandemic restrictions. He's pleading with officials not to give Djokovic special treatment.
When she was in palliative care, no one was allowed to see her in hospital except for me, and they were the rules at the time, and so that ban must stay.
Oz Open organisers have confirmed Djokovic wants to play. His legal team now needs to seek special permission from the federal government. The recent retirements of Ash Barty, Serena Williams and Roger Federer have left a huge void in the sport. The star power of Djokovic desperately needed at Melbourne Park.
There is no way that I will abide by the rules again if they're bent for one person just because they're famous and rich and they've got a talent.
Make it 9 for Novak.
The ball's in Novak's court. Abby Gelmi, 7 News.
A tip-off has helped end an 8-day manhunt for a man wanted over a sword attack in Melbourne's southeast. Tegan Doling joins us now, and Tegan, police have arrested the wanted man in his home.
Mitch, there was a major police operation leading up to this arrest after 2 people were injured in a random attack. The critical incident response team surrounded a Narre Warren home this morning and arrested a 39-year-old. Detectives spent most of the day at the house seizing swords, clothing and other evidence. They launched the operation after a man and woman were stalked and stabbed as they walked in Narre Warren North, leading to an appeal for the public to help to catch the culprit and to prevent further attacks. Police have told 7 News it was a public tip-off that led them to the house directly across the road from a primary school. Neighbours say the man was living alone and is a recluse. He's currently in custody, being questioned. Mitch.
Tegan Doling in the newsroom, thank you. Climate activists behind the shock Picasso protest at the NGV are warning there's more to come. They say it was easy to evade security to carry out the glue attack, but so far they haven't been charged by police.
Protester Tony Gleeson says it took months to plan, but it was so simple.
It doesn't take long to put glue on your hand and stick it on a piece of Perspex. It's not hard.
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
Gallery security never had a chance.
There were a number of people within 2 or 3 metres of us, security guys, that had no idea what we were doing. We were just so quick.
They chose Picasso's priceless Massacre in Korea because it's protected by Perspex and they could not damage it. Their hands eventually removed using acetone. Tony is a 69-year-old grandfather and retired teacher.
I'm law-abiding generally. I'm prepared to break the law in this case.
When the exhibition opened, the gallery boasted about security.
Here it's like Fort Knox.
But today, no gallery official was available to explain what went wrong with that Fort Knox-style security. It follows French climate protesters smearing the Mona Lisa with cake. Experts worry about copycats.
It's not good for artworks to have this kind of thing happen to them. And you don't want it to attract people who might have even, worse impact on the artworks.
The 2 protesters were interviewed by police, but not charged yet.
We're normalising this sort of civil disobedience.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
Former parliamentary staffer Brittany Higgins was unavailable to front court today for the continuation of the trial for the man accused of raping her. Isabel Mullen is in Canberra this evening, and Isabel, Ms Higgins had been due to give more evidence today.
Good evening, Peter. That's right. It wasn't long into the trial resuming today that we heard that Brittany Higgins was unavailable to continue her evidence. It's unclear how long she'll be unavailable for, and we can't speculate as to why. She was due to return to the stand for day 3 of cross-examination at Bruce Lerriman's rape trial. We did hear from 2 other witnesses, the former colleague and a Parliament House security guard. But a non-publication order prevents us from telling you what they said. Throughout the course of the trial, we are expecting to hear from about 58 witnesses, and the trial should run for about 6 weeks. Peter.
Isabel Mullen in Canberra, thank you. There's breaking news from Ukraine tonight. Pictures are coming in from the capital, Kyiv, showing the aftermath of several blasts. We know several lives have been lost, cars destroyed and buildings damaged. The Ukrainian government fears this attack and several across the country in the past day are revenge for what Vladimir Putin called an act of terror, the destruction of a key bridge linking Russia to occupied Crimea.
Deep in the collapsed apartment block, from underneath the concrete and rubble, an elderly woman is found and helped to safety. She appears to be one of the lucky ones, but so many were not, as the Ukrainian city of Zaporizhzhia was pounded by Russian missiles. As many as 50 apartment buildings damaged, 13 people killed in one tower alone. Entire neighbourhoods were flattened. Ukraine's president called it an act of absolute evil. It was horrible, 10-year-old Bowden says. My mother took me under her arm, then I looked after my brother and sister. The widespread attack on citizens, seemingly retribution for the damage to the road and rail bridges crossing the Kerch Strait, linking Russia to occupied Crimea, meeting his chief investigator. Vladimir Putin called that an act of terror, blaming Ukraine and Russian sympathisers for the blast. His Security Council will meet in coming hours. Long lines of traffic waited for part of the bridge still standing to reopen. The Kremlin scrambling to save face. The US calling for fresh peace talks.
Now, Mr. Putin has shown no indication, zero, none, that he's willing to do that. In fact, quite the contrary, by calling up hundreds of thousands of reservists, by politically annexing, or at least trying to annex, 4 areas of Ukraine, he's shown every indication that he's doubling down.
President Joe Biden has already warned of Armageddon if the conflict escalates further. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
Back home, our Defence Minister claims multi-billion-dollar budget blowouts and delays have left Australia with major capability gaps. Labor says it's now scrambling to get dozens of critical defence projects back on track.
Facing the most dangerous strategic circumstances since the Second World War, this is not what Australians wanted to hear.
We have inherited a defence procurement mess, a complete mess.
An audit revealing 28 projects are running a combined 97 years behind schedule, blaming the Morrison government.
Goldfish lasted longer than coalition defence ministers.
Saying its chaotic administration of defence has seen key projects, including the Hunter-class frigates delayed 4 years and $15 billion over budget, Spartan battlefield airlifters delivered 4.5 years late, and offshore patrol vessels running a year behind.
We put more money into defence than Labor ever did.
The opposition says under the Rudd and Gillard governments, defence spending fell to its lowest since 1938.
Labor didn't have any problems with boats being built or submarines being built because they never ordered one.
Either way, experts say Australia's been left vulnerable.
We could be facing a major power war within the next decade, so we need to address some of these problems quickly.
Confident it can get the projects back on track, the government's promising a more hands-on approach.
Getting back to basics. Establishing an independent project office, seeking monthly reports.
While it works through the problems with military hardware, the government says it's bolstering Australia's defences in other ways, including strengthening key alliances.
How are you? Good to see you. Great to see you.
Foreign Minister Penny Wong meeting with her Indian counterpart in Canberra.
We both recognise our region is being reshaped economically and strategically.
Keeping the next global superpower close. Rob Scott, 7 News.
Moderna has begun rolling out a new mRNA COVID vaccine protecting against 2 strains of the virus. The shot is the first of its kind in Australia and targets the Delta and Omicron variants. It's been integrated into the existing booster program and is now available for use in adults. Our hospitality sector is facing a shortage of 200,000 workers just as we head into the summer peak. Victorian bar and restaurant owners say not enough was done to support visa holders at the start of the pandemic, and now they can't lure them back.
The Northport pub is closed on Mondays. It's not the way the owners want it to be.
At the moment, to take a close on the Monday and forfeit our day's trade is easier to make sure that everyone's getting appropriate days off.
Pub owners say ongoing staff shortages could result in longer wait times for meals and drinks. Recruitment company Barcats estimates the worker shortage could lead to some venues closing up to 3 days a week over summer.
Chefs are probably the hardest people to find at the moment.
The industry is encouraging customers to book early and be patient.
It's going to put pressure on every operator over this period. The requirement of the industry as a whole is just going to far exceed what's available.
Students and skilled visa holders have been slow to return to Melbourne.
The Kiwis who hadn't lived here for long enough, who didn't qualify for JobKeeper, they went home, or everybody moved to Queensland where they were open. We didn't offer enough support.
James Sinclair agrees. His business operates Sporting Globe venues and TGI Fridays.
Excluding them from JobKeeper, I think, was a fundamental mistake, and our whole nation's paying for that.
Pub owners say it's not only been challenging to find qualified staff, but it's also been tricky to hold on to the junior ones they've spent time training.
We're hiring about 35 people a week in the lead into Christmas, management and chefs particularly.
The Department of Home Affairs says since May, it's recruited an extra 260 staff to support the fast tracking of visas. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Victorians are being warned of more flooding rain later this week. Jane Bunn joins us now with the details. And Jane, it could be a repeat of what we saw last Friday.
Well, Mitch, the sun may be shining today, but it's a short reprieve before the next big rain system. We saw just how quickly the water came up last week, stranding cars and people. That flash flooding is likely to occur again. And our river systems are at capacity, so another deluge will lead to major river flooding. Thursday is when it is due, shaping up to be a dangerous day in Melbourne and much of the state. I'll have all the details on that soon, Mitch.
See you then. Thank you, Jane. A monster deal has unlocked the AFL trade period. Abby Gelmy, the Kangaroos have parted with pick 1.
Mitch, it's the first time in more than 20 years a club has traded the number 1 pick. Chief football reporter Tom Brown is tracking all the trade developments, and Tom, it's a brave move from the Kangaroos.
Abby, the super mega trade was blocked under the rules over the weekend. It's back on tonight. North granting their number 1 pick swish, Jason Horne-Francis, officially at Port Adelaide tonight, together with West Coast's Junior Rioli. As part of the deal, the Giants now have the draft's number 1 pick. That's coveted, the first time that's been traded since 2001, set to use it on Ballarat boy Aaron Cadman. North get picks including 2, 3 and a future first. West Coast selections including 8 and 12. The other big trade today, Demon Luke Jackson has officially joined Fremantle. We'll hear from Jackson in his new colours later in sport. Incidentally, Horne-Francis's deal at Port Adelaide is staggering 6 years. Abby?
Thanks, Tom. We'll check in back with you shortly. Also coming up, the mid-pitch collision that lit the fuse for cricket's fiercest rivalry. And Cristiano Ronaldo has rewritten the record books, and we've also got exclusive pictures of a Trey Tuggett's tour of the Bombers. It's a very busy day in sport.
Yes, it is indeed. Thanks, Abby. We'll see you a bit later on. Thank you. A brothel manager's family commitments have saved him from jail, even though he hired a 16-year-old as an underage sex worker. Details are next on 7 News. Also coming up, a close call as a ute goes flying on the Mornington Peninsula Freeway. A trip of a lifetime turns to mystery as an Australian vanishes. And later, what's hot on show as Melbourne Fashion Week steps out. A ute driver was lucky to walk away from a crash after cutting it too fine while changing lanes on the Mornington Peninsula Freeway. The Ford Ranger clipped another ute and rolled into oncoming traffic last Wednesday. The 36-year-old driver was checked over by paramedics but didn't need to go to hospital. He will be getting an infringement notice for failing to give way. A Melbourne brothel manager has been spared jail for hiring a 16-year-old girl as a sex worker. He employed the teenager without verifying her age, as she now faces ongoing trauma from her time there.
a family man turned registered sex offender.
Are you a danger to the community?
Brothel manager Cheng Li spared jail time for prostituting a 16-year-old girl.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the victim?
The Mitcham man was manager of Heidelberg Angels, a brothel owned by his mother, when he turned a blind eye to the age of one of his workers. The child had previously told a recruiter she was over 18, but when she started working at the establishment, she wasn't interviewed or asked to fill out any paperwork. The young woman telling police it was just sort of, great, you're willing to work, in you go. Today, Lee was sentenced to a 3-year community corrections order for receiving payment for sex work provided by a child. The girl was living in residential care at the time.
I am troubled by the apparent lack of appreciation you have for the seriousness of your offending.
Lee has been ordered to complete 400 hours of unpaid community work. He'll also be placed on the sex offenders register for the next 8 years.
Lee's victim says she still suffers from flashbacks from her time at the brothel. Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
The Andrews government has committed $60 million to upgrade Boronia Station in Melbourne's east if re-elected in November.
We don't want train lines or trenches dividing communities.
The state opposition was talking up its promise for a $2 flat fare for public transport.
For someone who lives in Tarneet and wants to go to Werribee Plaza, they'll get on the bus and pay $2 flat fare there and back, and that's it for the whole day.
The Liberals say the 4-year program would cost $1.3 billion. An Australian man has vanished without trace in America. Relatives of the 68-year-old are now making a frantic dash to the US to try to find him.
A semi-retired radiographer, he'd travelled abroad countless times.
Loved it.
But this was the bucket list trip to beat them all, an icebreaker to the North Pole. Stanley Haviland was wrapping up the adventure in Seattle last Wednesday when hotel staff found him conscious but unable to move. Treated in hospital for severe confusion, then discharged, this security footage as he left 4 days ago, a last image before the 68-year-old vanished.
He never went back to the hotel to collect his luggage. He hasn't been seen since.
His confused state, does that make any sense to you?
It makes no sense. We are an absolute loss. Stanley would contact family and friends every step of the way.
Now, nephews and nieces in Australia who know Stanley as a second dad are mounting a rescue mission. 2 flying to Seattle to recover his belongings and begin a search, backed by local police and a missing persons campaign.
And we're desperate to find him, make sure he's okay and bring him home.
In the United States, Tim Lester, 7 News.
Corgi owners have gathered outside Buckingham Palace, joined by their best friends to honour Queen Elizabeth. The breed is forever linked to the late monarch, who owned nearly 30 of them in her lifetime. Organisers said the memorial walk was all about celebrating the Queen's life through her favoured dog. Locals are pleading for help as they blame a big project in Melbourne's east for putting their futures on the line. The details are next. Also, heartbreaking tributes for the young man killed in a hit-run murder case. Lava flows into the ocean as an Italian volcano roars into life. And an emotional blast from the past for the stars of Back to the Future. A driver's behind bars charged with murder over the hit-run death of a young man at Hastings. 23-year-old Jamison Ross was killed on Saturday night. Friends and family say he was an inspiration who touched the hearts of many. The alleged driver, Hayden Waterhouse, was charged with murder late yesterday after police say he sped away from the scene. He was remanded in custody to face court in January. It's been confirmed an Australian father is among the victims of a deadly petrol station blast in Ireland. 48-year-old James O'Flaherty, originally from Sydney, lived in nearby Donegal County. Mr O'Flaherty was one of 10 people who died in the explosion in what police are describing as a tragic accident. Frustrated traders in Melbourne's east say a construction nightmare is sending them broke. They're fighting the state government for compensation over level crossing works.
A once bustling shopping strip taken over by construction. Traders say they've lost thousands to the level crossing project. The entire area now a ghost town.
Some of the businesses are teetering on going broke.
And the disruption is about to get worse. The street will be shut off for up to 4 months early next year.
That's going to be devastating. That's going to be the nail in the coffin for many of the traders here.
A recent survey found 95% have experienced a significant drop in revenue. 75% felt the effect on their small business was unsustainable.
At least half the foot traffic has disappeared. A lot of that has to do with people not being able to park their car.
The demolition works are to remove 2 of Melbourne's most dangerous level crossings, making way for one big superstation servicing Surrey Hills and Mont Albert. Businesses are now pushing for compensation to help see them through.
We accept that the crossing removal has to go ahead, but it shouldn't cost people their livelihoods.
We're doing everything that's available to us to support their businesses with tailored marketing, shop local campaigns and loyalty programs.
Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Overseas, incredible pictures show the moment a volcano on the Italian island of Stromboli roared back to life. It unleashed a huge plume of smoke and a lava flow that reached all the way to the sea. The Stromboli volcano is one of the most active on the planet and has been erupting almost continuously since 1932. And Back to the Future stars Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd have had an emotional reunion on stage at New York's Comic-Con. Michael J. Fox has been battling Parkinson's disease for more than 30 years. A new Disney blockbuster, the latest Planet of the Apes movie, is being made in Australia. It's promising to generate more than $100 million for the local economy when filming begins.
Planet of the Apes, a science fiction fan favourite that's evolved through time.
We are not savages. Apes fight only to survive.
With the latest instalment headed down under.
It's a big-scale, large, technically complex movie.
The production was lured to Sydney with $17 million in federal funding, on top of an undisclosed amount from the New South Wales government. It is expected to inject $128 million into the economy and create 400 local jobs.
Those people will then move in and out through all different aspects of the industry, telling our stories to Australia and the world.
Production has started with the release date set for 2024. In a promising sign that Disney is looking to increase its footprint and commitment to our local industry, Fox Studios will no longer exist. This precinct will now be called Disney Studios Australia. Fox Studios opened in 1998. It was home to Babe, Pig in the City, The Matrix, other major titles including Moulin Rouge and, most recently, Thor, Love and Thunder. Miley Hogan, 7 News.
New scam tactics are catching out more and more Victorians. It's sophisticated and it's working. Next, see for yourself what they're doing now. Also on 7 News, a church leader's message about religious discrimination. What was behind a spectacular aerial display over St Kilda? And after sport, Victorians told to ditch the black as Fashion Week shows us what's hot. Church worshippers associated with former Essendon CEO Andrew Thorburn say they're worried they too could face discrimination at work.
To be cancelled because of your faith is a dangerous idea. And so there is this real sense of sadness.
Andrew Thorburn was forced to resign as the Bombers' boss because of his connection to the City on a Hill church. Time now for a check on the markets with finance editor Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Peter. After its best week in 2 years, the ASX 200 is dropping again, closing 95 points lower at 6,668. Every sector fell today, with utilities taking the wooden spoon. The Aussie dollar is tapping new multi-year lows, currently around 63.3 US cents, while oil prices are softening, having hit their highest point since August. Across Australia, there is around a third less rental stock available than normal, leaving us with the lowest national vacancy rate on record, thanks to a lack of supply meeting a rise in demand since borders reopened. In all capitals except Hobart, vacancies are around half of what they were a year ago. Peter.
Gemma Acton reporting. There's a big spike in a new scam tactic that's catching out more and more unsuspecting Victorians. The impersonation cons go to new lengths to extract information and steal savings.
Hello there, my name is Martin Moore, calling you from the Westpac Fraud Prevention Team.
This is a recording of a smooth-talking conman posing as a fraud investigator, engaging in a scam called spoofing. He disguised his overseas phone number, displaying Westpac Australia's number to trick the customer.
I have confirmed to you that the number I'm calling you from today is on the back of your card. Now, have you checked that and verified that?
It's a trend that's been used by fraudsters in other parts of the world, but it's really taken off in Australia just in the last few months.
Westpac has found scams rose 33% in the last financial year. The bank is so concerned about spoofing, it released the scam call as a warning.
Perfect. So if you can just go ahead and confirm your date of birth for me, please.
This customer became wary, but many others have been caught. Donna Brain lost $200,000 after a spoof call from a scammer posing as Commonwealth Bank staff. Her account was hacked and her savings stolen.
They transferred $500 and then 6 lots of $20,000 and then at $80,000.
What Westpac's done is to work with telco providers to stop our phone numbers being spoofed in this way.
If a call is unexpected and seems suspicious, the advice is to hang up and check the story by calling the actual organisation. Never divulge personal or financial information. A lucky escape for one as big business fights an ever-increasing threat. Jackie Quist, 7 News.
There was a spectacular aerial display over St Kilda as the Royal Australian Air Force launched its countdown to the International Air Show at Avalon. After a 3-year hiatus, the event is set to take off again in March.
15 and under can be free. They used to pay $32.
Tickets go on sale from this Thursday. Sport is next with Abby Gelmy, and Abby, you almost need a calculator to get your head around today's trade bombshell.
Well, at the very least, a whiteboard and some magnets. It's been a very big day, Mitch, but we're going to have all the latest for the mega deal for you next, as the Kangaroos trade away pick number 1. Also, exclusive pictures as a big-name demon tours Essendon. New docker Luke Jackson reveals the moment he knew his time in Melbourne was up. The mid-pitch collision that's reignited cricket's fiercest rivalry. And Cristiano Ronaldo joins the 700 Club. I just love that they all wait. Welcome back. Premiership demon Luke Jackson's trade to Fremantle is poised to unlock a host of new deals. Mitch Cleary has tonight's developments, and Mitch, the clock's ticking ahead of Wednesday's deadline.
Abby, the Dockers are describing Jackson as their unicorn and have given up pick 13, a future first and second round pick for the star 21-year-old. If the latter stays the same, it's the equivalent of pick 2. Jackson admitting he played the second half of the year knowing he wanted to leave Melbourne after meeting Dockers coach Justin Longmuir.
It was about that bye break in the middle of the season. Got home and was able to meet up with Jo and Belly and obviously met them, and I was really comfortable around them. So I reckon around that period is when I felt could lean towards Freo.
Jackson's move is set to be the first domino in other deals. The Demons now have the room for star pie Brodie Grundy. When he leaves, it will allow Collingwood cash for Hawk Tom Mitchell. Fremantle will now be more open to listen to offers from the Bulldogs for Rory Lobb, while Docker's backup Lloyd Meek is now a better chance to get his wish to Hawthorn. As of tonight, pick 27 remains on the table for Grundy from Melbourne. Collingwood hoarding firm for Ollie Henry. The Pies refusing to accept Geelong's offer of pick 25. And a super late play today. GWS calling Hawthorn at midday, inquiring on Hawks midfielder Jager O'Meara. It comes after O'Meara attended close friend and Giants co-captain Stephen Coniglio's wedding on the weekend. A bit to play up there. And finally, Isaac Rankin getting to Adelaide in exchange for pick 5. Abby?
Thank you, Mitch. It's been a hectic day of dealing for the Bombers. Returning to Chief Football reporter Tom Brown. And Tom, a big-name demon toured Essendon late today.
Abby, Sam Wiedemann has struggled to get a game at Melbourne. It's hard there, but the demon toured Essendon this afternoon. 7 News was there at Tullamarine headquarters for at least an hour, meeting new coach Brad Scott. It's preliminary, no contracts have been done, but it could happen. Likely to be a three-way deal where Aaron Francis gets to Sydney. That was Wiedemann there this afternoon. Essendon officially landing Carlton's Will Setterfield. The Bombers set to give Setterfield if he can fit in some midfield time. Now, Luke Beveridge is digging in, I'm told today, over Josh Dunkley. He's not happy about this, but there is some reasonably positive language coming from the Dogs tonight. Dunkley eventually should get to Brisbane by Wednesday night. It's hard for the Dogs. They rejected arguably a better deal from Essendon for Dunkley a couple of years ago. Since then, he's been in form. He's won the best and fairest this year. And this is the super mega deal we spoke of earlier. It's proof, Abby, that clubs can get complicated deals done. They don't take all the trade period. There'll be a lot of paperwork lodged at the AFL. North in particular will have picks 2 and 3. They might want to get a couple of close mates there, which has been done at clubs before. And Abby, just finally, with 2 days to go, a lot of clubs are surprised the Giants haven't tabled one more big name. Haynes, $1 million over 2 years he's owed. Green, Whitfield, Kelly, Coniglio, all $1 million plus a year. Their salary squeeze is a discussion point amongst other clubs. It's a little bit of a case of watch this space for the next 2 days, Abby.
We certainly will. Thank you, Tom. It was a dramatic opening game of Australia's T20 series against England, with Matthew Wade appearing to intentionally obstruct the bowler from fielding the ball.
Not looking like he's focusing totally on just getting back there, does it? I can't say I know what Matt Wade was thinking, but when that arm went out there...
They said, did we want to appeal? But I said no. We've only just got to Australia, so I thought, just carry on the game.
David Warner top scored with 73 as Australia fell 8 runs short. Game 2 is on Wednesday night. The Bathurst champions partied hard after their win on the mountain.
How you feeling, mate? Better than him. Yeah, big night. Can't even talk. That's how big a night it was.
I'm good.
Did you have a good day?
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Shane Van Gisbergen and co-driver Garth Tander gave Holden the perfect farewell at Mount Panorama. The Gen 3 Camaro will replace the Commodore on the grid next season. World champion for the second time after a rain-shortened Japanese Grand Prix. The Dutchman crossed the line first, but only found out he'd done enough to clinch the title during his post-race interview.
Charlie got a 5-second penalty there after the little sort of race we had with Sergio. World champion. Well, what can I say? Incredible, of course.
Daniel Ricciardo finished 11th. Soccer superstar Cristiano Ronaldo has scored his 700th goal in club football, helping Manchester United defeat Everton at 2-1. Arsenal is setting the pace in the Premier League thanks to a contentious late penalty against Liverpool.
And now a big spat going on inside the penalty area. Tempers frayed, stakes high.
The Gunners converted to claim a 3-2 win and move back to the top of the table. And Mitch, very big day in football, and there's still so many deals to go in the trade period.
It's hard to get your head around, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm going to go talk to Mitch and Tom and work it out.
Yeah, OK. Thanks very much, Abby. Melbourne Fashion Week has made a colourful return, helping to breathe fresh life into the city. Hundreds of Australian designers will be helping to cement our place as the style capital.
Fashion is making a bold transformation. Victoria emerging from 2 years of loungewear, ditching the city's traditional black for bright. 600 celebrated and emerging designers to feature in Melbourne Fashion Week.
Flowy dresses like this one, but also a lot of structured suits.
From pinks to patterns to pinstripes.
I think we're just going to see lots of colour, lots of confidence.
All outfits are up for grabs, injecting colour and money back into the city.
Last year, this generated about $40 million for our local businesses. This year, we're expecting that to go up again.
The first day attracted some familiar faces and some fresh ones, with the daughter of Melbourne's own Eric Banner making a catwalk cameo.
Everyone's gone for big colour choices, and I saw someone have like flowers on their blazer before. I think everyone's like really taking the opportunity to just be bold and brave with it.
8 different locations will be transformed into runways as part of the 7-day event. It's expected to draw 175,000 from Australia and overseas to the city. The focus this year is on First Nations designers, with more than 70 local artists and stylists showcasing their work. There will be 100 ticketed and free events over the next week. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Jane Barn is next with the forecast. And Jane, how does it look tomorrow?
Well, its temperatures are jumping up, the last of the pleasant weather before our next big rain system. All the details are next.
Tonight on the latest from 7 News, Kyiv under attack, several new explosions reported, all the developments. Your power bill to go up by 35% next year. What's needed to stop that predicted rise? And we're joined by a former Defence Force medic deployed to the Bali bombings for her memories. When it breaks, we'll have it live at 11:15.
On 7 News, the big health insurance savings just waiting to be cashed in.
I was going, do we scrap it completely?
How families can save thousands as premiums rise once again.
83% said they saved money.
7 News with Peter Mitchell at 6 o'clock.
Hello again. We're currently in the pleasant part of the weather pattern, but there is another big rain system on the horizon. Clear skies and light winds led to a crisp start to the day. The city dropped to 5, that is 5 degrees below average, and our coldest October morning in 2 years. It had only thawed to 15 at lunchtime, and then our peak was 18. The air is cool, but it's offset by that bright sun. It was as chilly as 2 in Avalon and Watsonia. Yarra Glen dipped just below 1. Then we all reached the high teens. Today had lots of sunshine over Victoria. It's our dry break before the next significant rain. We are starting to see the wispy high cloud ahead of that rain. In a La Nina spring and summer, it's not rain all the time. High pressure brings a dry break and pleasant conditions. But when low pressure moves through, it has huge levels of moisture. So if you're in the path of the low, the rain is significant. We see it develop on Wednesday. Not much in the morning, then increasing and turning more widespread in the afternoon and evening. Now there is the potential for localised heavy rain later on Wednesday. But then watch how those heavier falls become widespread on Thursday. That is our big weather day this week. Widespread soaking rain and embedded storms with intense falls. Much of Victoria is in the path of this one. Yellow shows at least 20 millimetres. The orangey red is at least 50. Falls over 100 are likely in a few spots. Now, least likely to see big rain this time is the far southwest corner. The current flooding situation has these rivers in minor to moderate flood. New flood watches will be issued by midweek. We're highly likely to experience another round of moderate to major flooding. I'll keep you updated through the week. Around the nation tomorrow, dry through much of the east, and Adelaide is jumping up to 24. Cloud builds, but only a light spit there tomorrow. Perth is back to sunshine. To Victoria, winds turn northerly, bringing a mild to warm day. Cloud does increase from the west, but it's mainly sheets of high cloud, so it remains quite dry, except at the southwest coast where showers are likely. You can see them in the southwest corner there late afternoon and evening. The widespread proper rain doesn't begin until Wednesday afternoon. Closer in, we are all dry and it's warmer. We're jumping up into the low 20s thanks to winds turning northerly, even though there's all of this cloud overhead thickening during the afternoon. The city begins on 8 and it rises to 22. There's no wet weather, completely dry, but that cloud does thicken. To the 8-day outlook, the rain slowly begins during the morning on Wednesday. In the afternoon and evening, that's when I'd expect it to become more persistent. But on Wednesday, it's only 2 to 10 millimetres. Thursday is our big rain day, 40 to 80 millimetres across the Melbourne area, easing back during the day on Friday as temperatures cool down once again. 22 tomorrow, cloud thickening. That is our last dry day before the next big rain sets in. That's later in the week, particularly Thursday, Mitch.
We're coming up to the halfway point of spring. It's been pretty ordinary.
We are.
So far.
Yes. Well, when we get that high pressure overhead, it's quite nice, like we had today.
Yeah.
But then we get those big lows as well. Yeah.
OK, thanks very much, Jane. Now, here's what's on Sunrise in the morning.
Thanks, Mitch. Tomorrow on Sunrise, the top ways to slash your summer electricity bill.
Plus guilt-free desserts that won't hit your waistline. See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Monday, the 10th of October. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.